Well, welcome back, everybody, to an amazingly, really special episode of Tech Whispers. I want to start off with a question. What does it take to build something that lasts? And I'm not talking about like for years, I'm talking about for centuries. And what does it take to lead in a way that honors that legacy while reinventing it in the middle of one of the most disruptive moments ever seen? Today's guest lives at that interesting, complicated, and often messy intersection. Leigh-Ann Russell is the global head of engineering and the CIO of BNY, a global financial institution that sits at the heart of global commerce. BNY was actually founded 240 years ago to bring order and trust to a chaotic, newly formed economy coming out of the Revolutionary War. Fast forward to today, and here we are again, a different kind of chaos driven by AI, data, digital disruption, but the same need for trust, for structure, for clarity. And right at the center of it is Leigh-Ann, a leader who is uniquely built for this moment. Like BNY, she is grounded, yet forward-looking. She's disciplined, yet innovative. And she's quietly powerful, yet deeply, deeply influential. Her journey started with humble beginnings back in Scotland and leading now, today, at the highest levels across industries, countries, and cultures, stepping into new arenas, always delivering. But what makes Leigh-Ann truly special, truly fascinating, isn't just where she's been, it's how she thinks, how she leads. And we have some special mystery questioners who are going to help me unpack those parts of her story. So buckle up because you are about to join me for a conversation about endurance, about innovation that actually holds together, and about what it means to lead with clarity and calm and intention. So to do that, Leigh-Ann, welcome, warm welcome. Thanks so much for joining us here at Tech Whispers.
Thank you. I'm really delighted to be here, Dan.
You've been globetrotting. You've been all over the world. I don't know when you sleep. You have great energy on a Friday. You always do. So I've been looking forward to this so much. So, my first question for you, it's pretty interesting to me, but you're leading technology at a company that was founded by Alexander Hamilton, like the Alexander Hamilton, like from a couple centuries ago, and someone who wasn't just bringing order to a chaotic, newly formed economy, but he was also introducing bold innovation that people didn't really fully understand at that time. So, Leah, let's fast forward 240 years later. Here we are again. Do you feel as the CIO of BNY like you have a responsibility, an opportunity like he had back then?
Well, I hope he would improve, Dan. I mean, he was of Scottish heritage, as I understand. His father was a Scot. And I will tell you, before I joined the bank, I was a major fan of the musical. I've actually seen it 5 times, both in London and New York, which has a slightly different view, especially when the king comes on. And honestly, one of the special things about here is outside my office sits the original ledgers of the bank, like in hand script with like the accounts of the founding fathers. So this is really a special place. And I do feel the resonance. Actually, I think the tools are very different. The handwritten ledger, also juxtaposition to our very, very state-of-the-art cyber technology operations center. They kind of sit side by side. So the tools are very different, but I think the job is really similar. Like, as an engineer, we are in the biggest period of disruption of my entire career, if not history. So our jobs have been quite similar to bring clarity, trust, and structure. And so the tool might be AI right now, which is not a side experiment for us, but you don't get to be 241 years old in this country unless you really do embrace innovation at the core.
Yeah. And just to give us some context, the Fortune 500, the last 20 years, I think 51% of the companies are no longer
Wow.
on the Fortune 500 in the last 20 years. So to
Wow.
be
That's a stat,
enduring,
isn't it?
it is, but it just tells you just how hard this is. And you talked a little bit about your role, but could you share your remit? Like you got head of engineering, CIO. What does that mean at BNY?
So we, my team, cover everything in technology. So I always talk. Well, I'm talking quite a lot right now about AI, but job number one is for us is cyber and resiliency. BMY sits at the heart of global financial services infrastructure. So that really is the most important part of my job. We are managing and overseeing and custody of $59 trillion of assets for the global economies. And so we have to make sure that we have the trust of our clients and keeping that money safe and moving it efficiently. So I look after cyber and resiliency at the bank. That's our infrastructure and cybersecurity teams. And then also how we build software. So engineering, design, and digital channels also sit in my remit and how we build the technology that our customers love.
Incredible. Could you take a minute and talk about what it means to be a custodian? Because this is not like the usual bank we see in the corner, right?
Yeah, no, we're not, as you would typically know of a bank. We don't have a retail branch. We don't have an investment bank per se. We manage, move, and keep money safe on behalf of probably most of the Fortune 500 and many of the companies globally. So one in five of every investable asset comes through our pipes every day. So that's what it really means to be a custodian. Another word that's often used is trust bank. We hold the trust on behalf of our clients of this managing, moving, and keeping safe their assets in the global financial services market.
That's just staggering to think about that. One in five investable assets dollars, 59 trillion, you said.
59
T.
trillion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
staggering.
to the T.
Yeah, talk about capital T trust. Well, I'm going to continue with some of the Hamilton story here, which is really, really special. And just, being a history buff as I am. But, Hamilton, John Adams, George Washington, they got most of the attention, the credit, but they're wise. People don't know this, but most people don't. Elizabeth Hamilton, Abigail Adams, Martha Washington were truly trusted advisors behind the scenes. Like they helped shape big decisions in profound ways. So, with that, I want to set you up to talk about maybe a little Elizabeth Hamilton story, maybe Eliza story.
Well, I mean, if you're a fan of the musical, like I said, I am. You'll know that there's a very strong request for them to be in the sequel. And of course, she was a philanthropist in her own right. You know, she went on to do amazing things after Alexander's early death. And so we are very pleased to say that our platform, our AI platform at the bank, we have named after Eliza. So our platform, we built it ourselves. It's multi-agent, model agnostic. We consume Gemini, Claude, GPT in Eliza. It's also our governance model and everything AI at the bank is Eliza. So very, very proud to share that we have named Eliza as our AI platform. And in fact, we say powered by Eliza in many cases. And so she is definitely kept alive in our bank history today.
I love the old and the new, right? Like build off the old, but now here's the new. I don't think they knew on AI back then. Maybe they did. I don't know.
No, no, no. Although it'll be a different version. Of course, the founding fathers were at the forefront of their own technology revolutions back then. I mean, the whole bank was conceived because he wanted to provide that stability in a disruptive time. So they were definitely innovators in their own right.
One of the very special parts of this podcast is we bring in special people, mystery questioners, people who know you well, and I think you're going to be pretty. I think you'll smile when you hear these voices and their thoughtful questions. But this first one is somebody that I would just say she has a front row view of how you lead every day. Like she's in it with you, she's in the trenches with you, and especially when it comes to leading the people side of the equation, the AI journey, this whole transformation. So listen in when we come back, tell us who this is and maybe a little bit about your relationship, and then you'll have followed her question.
So when I think about Leigh-Ann, I always think of Leigh-Ann's executive courage, her deep-rooted knowledge in all things, not just engineering, but in AI, just her whole career journey and what she's learned along the way. So my question for Leigh-Ann is, How did you come in and assess the environment here at BNY, really kind of get the lay of the land and leverage your knowledge to bring along the executive committee when they're all in such different places and in different parts of the journey?
Well, that is the wonderful Shannon Hobbs, who is our Chief People Officer here at BMY. A wonderful, wonderful partner to me. I don't think there's also been a time in history where tech and HR have to be like the most close partners. I think AI is such a cultural revolution as much as it is a technical revolution. So I'm forever grateful for Shannon's partnership. She made a massive difference when I came in. I had changed sectors, changed companies, and I will say she was instrumental to helping me settle. I also have the gift of Robin Vince, who's our CEO, and we'll probably talk about him a couple of times because he is also very, very instrumental to me being here, but also how we're leading in technology. And when I came in, Robin had a rule that was for the first 3 months, you're not allowed to do anything. You can only listen, learn, and integrate. And I think that is a gift. Many leaders would not be in that position. They would be very much encouraging their executive team to be straight out the bat, adding value. And of course, he values the real things in life, which is leadership teams who bring cohesivity, coherence, and work as a team. So I think the most important thing was not to come in leveraging any of my skills, but actually to spend the time understanding the system, what was strong, where the friction is, where we had momentum, where things were different from the organizations that I worked in the past. And I'm very, very cognizant of the fact that AI is a complex issue, not just technology wise, but for so many reasons. So I think it's really important to recognize that people are at different stages of their journey and will continue to be so over the next few years. So, what I've been really focused on at the executive level is building a shared language around AI, shared confidence, and then shared ownership. I strongly believe that AI is not a technology gatekeeping exercise. Like, it's really as much as a business leader as it is of technology. And I think helping approach it from that level with my colleagues, like, this is a tool that will help you commercially, it really helps level the playing field for the discussions that we have.
Shannon, thanks so much. Get to meet her. We'll talk about how we met here in a little bit, but talk more about you talked about the CIO, Chief People Officer partnership. It seems to me, Leigh-Ann, that the organizations, the companies that are really winning or ahead of the game, there's a CEO in the game when it comes to driving this transformation. So talk about your partnership with Robin.
I will say at every opportunity. I think the silver bullet for how we've been successful so far in AI have been three things. One, absolutely, this has to be CEO led. I don't know any organization who's winning right now that doesn't have AI led from the top. And Robin isn't leading, he's not out there talking about AI. He's actually using the technology in his personal and professional life. We did vibe coding as an executive committee last year. We had everyone hands on with windsurf, including Robin and all of my peers. And so he really understands this technology front to back. And I think that is the silver bullet. The second one we've already touched on, which is our platform build. And the third, again, in partnership with Robin and the executive committee, was not choking the organization from an ROI perspective, but actually saying this technology is going to transform financial services, and we know that. And therefore, right now, as the technology evolves, the most important thing is enablement. And making sure that everyone at the bank is literate in the technology has also been a huge unlock for us. And I know that many leadership teams have been really choking back on show me the money, I guess we'll say, show me the money, and not allowing the adoption of the technology. And we had the gift of Robin and the EC being all in on enablement, just really having a look to the future for how this technology was going to evolve and go all in. AI for everyone, everywhere was our joint handshake last year. And therefore, living that has been really important. And Robin has really enabled that.
I have a hunch that this podcast, especially that last answer, is going to be shared with many CEOs as a best practice, and I love that.
We'll get them all vibe coding.
That's right. Get them all coding. That's good. But I think Shannon's question really got us talking about how you operate at the most strategic, highest levels of the organization, very engaged with the board level. But we also know that winning hearts and minds at the bottoms up, and also what I call win the middle, is so vital, right, to a sustained success of these things. So, got another mystery questioner is going to help us understand how you succeed at all these levels. So, listen in.
If you think about how technology has evolved from your days on steel-toe boots and a tally book in the pocket of your coveralls to your red sole heels and a digital twin in the pocket of your tailor jacket, the pace of AI over the last few months has been extraordinary, and for many of us, frankly, overwhelming. What would you say to help people break through that fear? Share one leap of faith that shifts us towards embracing AI. 2 mindset changes essential for navigating this moment. And 3 learning priorities that will set up people for success in the months and years ahead.
So that is my wonderful friend, Adriana Marquez, who I have worked with for a very long time. And the signifier of Adriana in that question is heels, the red heels, which she nicknamed me. I grew up a engineer, a tomboy, and a bit of a geek. And it wasn't until much older in my life that I felt comfortable really embracing who I was and wearing heels and dresses to the office. And so I really lent in on that and became one of my signature moves. And Adriana would be the person who would know that best. And so that's kind of funny that she picked up on that there. I think let's pick them off one by one. I think the biggest leap of faith is to lean in before you're fully comfortable. That goes a little bit back to the point of Robin enabling us to go full on learning and adoption before we really understood what the financial impacts were. Now, of course, we're reaping those immensely right now, but I think that would be a leap of faith. And I think that's the other thing that becomes really important for us as individuals. Like, I don't think there's a book or a training course that you can do on AI that's as good as just using GPT or Claude or trying things, ask questions, experiment. I think that's the biggest thing is like, you're not going to be comfortable. You're not going to find a training course. Just go all out and do some learning. And I think the mindset shifts are very similar. So I think, we're very comfortable being experts, particularly those of us that are more mature in our careers. So going from an expert to a learner is a really difficult mindset shift for many of us. And I think that is the biggest mindset shift. Don't be comfortable with your expertise. You're now going to have to go back and relearn what you thought you knew. And so therefore, that would be the mindset shift, which was the second part to the question. And that takes us nicely to the third part of the question, what are the learning priorities? Just use the technology, prompting, interacting, figure out where it adds value, where it's AI slop, which is a lovely term of things that, I kind of also think are fun, like making your dog look like a superhero but that's also part of learning. And then I think the third part of the learning is really learning to build judgment, because this technology cannot be trusted 100% of the time. It still has hallucinations. It still gets things wrong. So again, you can only learn this by being in the technology, right? Really understanding when you can trust it and when you can't, when you need human in the loop or a human supervisor, and when you can let this technology flow naturally. Because I really do believe that the winners in this game of AI are not the people who know the most. They are going to be the people who adapt the fastest.
Yeah, so good. Adriana, thanks so much. I had a chance to meet her. We recorded her question live, and because I wanted to hear more about you through her lens. And I was going to ask her for a picture of the steel toe boots and the coveralls, but I just figured we say with the business suit. But thank you
Well,
for her.
it's I posted a picture of that on International Women's Day this year. So, like, if you're really interested in me in a hard hat, then you can go and see me on LinkedIn.
All right, we're going to do that for sure. And she's a Spitfire. I mean, what a hot ticket she is.
Absolutely. I mean, a great engineer and a great friend to me over the years.
You mentioned AI slop, which I think was hyphenated to become the word of the year last year, or the new dictionary word of the year, or one of those things. And so, which kind of makes me think about, you've been very thoughtful about Leigh-Ann's word of the year, top right at this time. So tell us what that is and why that is.
So my word of the year became very apparent to me. Well, I can't say it was my New Year's resolution because it really has been born of the pace of 26, which I call AI dog years, like how fast the world has changed this year, even compared to how fast, and it has been fast in the last couple of years. But the word is coherence. Because what's been really apparent to me this year is AI is not something that you can throw money at or technology at. Like, the companies who are going to be successful and who are being successful are those that have coherence. And that word can be used in a few different ways. I mean, there's certainly at a stack level, there's a coherence needed between architecture and data and platforms and governance. Like, that coherence across your stack is really important. But in a large enterprise like ours, coherence means shared standards, reusable platforms, and leadership coherence. And that's been a real gift for us at BMY, that we have an executive committee who've said we're all in on AI and we're doing this together. And that's coherence in a different way. And look, we're not spending anything like some of the numbers that are thrown out there by other big corporate organizations. We've been very frugal in how we've adopted this technology, which has also enabled us to really have widespread adoption. So this really goes to prove that it's not about who has the biggest budget and who has the best technology, but who has the best coherence in their stack and their leadership and across vertically in the organization is really, I believe, the companies that are going to win.
So brilliant on many levels. I just my favorite Alexander Hamilton quote, by the way, is those who stand for nothing fall for everything.
I love that.
How interesting is that, right? For 2026 and the age of coherence. And, maybe kind of building on that, people know I talk a lot about VUCA: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. And I'll ask a room full of executives, 3 years from now, more VUCA, less VUCA. Everyone knows it's going to be more, right? I mean, more VUCA. And my friend Afshin Talasaz, we spent a lot of time just thought partners, bouncing ideas. He came up with the idea of double VUCA. And here's why he thinks that, because, VUCA is very much an external impact on the organization, but a lot of the way people are handling or approaching these digital data AI initiatives, they're actually causing internal VUCA, and it's not just like 2x, it's like exponential repercussions. And so suddenly there's no grounding, there's no clarity. We like to say confused minds don't act. And so there's real risk, with that internal chaos starts to compound. So it really makes, to me, it's like coherence is not a word, it's really a strategy, right? It's I don't know, maybe talk maybe a little bit about that.
I'm going to steal VUCA. I think that's just a lovely frame, particularly, I mean, for a frame forever, but particularly a frame for today and the world that we live in, because AI is an amplification. And so that's why, the flip side of my coherence word is chaos. And if you have chaos, AI just amplifies the chaos. I shared an article on LinkedIn recently about brain fry. HBR published this article and it really resonated with me because I think about I do actually have cognitive overload with trying to keep up on AI and trying to use all the different tools. And so there definitely is this potential. If you have chaos, that AI will just amplify that chaos and it will just compound. And again, that's in your leadership strategy, your tooling strategy. One of the reasons that we double down on Eliza as a platform is everything AI is Eliza. We don't have to try different tools. There's a one-stop marketplace, there's a one-stop governance, there's a one-stop tooling ability. And so I think this is just a wonderful frame down for how leaders we should be thinking about the next 2 years. I mean, it's our job. People think that we should be experts in things. I'm like less an expert every day than I was the day before, and particularly in the current world. But our job is to cut through chaos and provide clarity and find great talent. And so I think that's a wonderful frame that you have. And yeah, double VUCA, highly likely.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we definitely have to slow the game down for people, right? It's just too hard. And I love where you're going with this. And I have another special mystery questioner here. And by the way, VUCA was not my term. It was actually research that was done by the Army War College decades ago. And it was made popular by Bob Johansen, who's with the Institute for the Future. And so he's the one that really popularized that concept. And I'm probably the one who talks about it the most because it's just so relevant to our field. But
and this is a wonderful thing about the world right now. Like, so many of the lessons from the past are so relevant today. Actually, my favorite book is Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, and I tell everyone to go read it, not the full preamble, but just the section, because all of the lessons that he came out with, like 2000 plus years ago, are distinctly relevant to leadership. So I think that's lovely. And back to the Alexander Hamilton books outside my office in AI, this is the time to blend history and technology and human and AI. This is a real opportunity for us to blend in that way.
yeah, that's why I had so much fun pulling in the Hamilton history, right? Because all those things really matter. And Leigh-Ann, you're somebody that I want to make you blush. You're not going to like this, but I'm going to say it anyways. You're one of those unique people that has high IQ, you've got high EQ, and you've got high AQ, which is your adaptability quotient. And I've got a mystery questioner, a good friend of both of ours, who's going to ask a question that's going to really shine the light on your AQ. So listen in.
Hey, Leigh-Ann, it has been such an honor on a personal basis to get to know you and to see your leadership. What's really shocking and exciting to me is to see somebody at your level that's moved from one industry to a very, very different one, and again, at such a very senior level. That seems to me really rare. I don't see that very often. And of course, in both instances, you've absolutely crushed it. Here's my question. What can the rest of us learn from such flexibility and latitude in being able to go from one industry so different from another and crush it in both? Give us some tips.
Well, of course, that's our wonderful friend, Akif Farazi. And, of anyone that has IQ, EQ, and AQ, that would be him. He would still be one of my inspirations in that regard. So that question coming from him is doubly meaningful. So I will say just a couple of things here. I took a role outside engineering back in 2018. I went and ran the procurement organization at BP, $30 billion of procurement, from drilling rigs to things coming through petrol stations. And it was a really humbling experience for me. And probably one of my biggest lessons in life was how powerful and humbling it is when you're not the expert in the room. And I learned so much from that. I was a better leader from doing that. And that gave me the confidence to come into a new sector. And I would say not just the confidence to come to a new sector, but actually embracing it. Because there's something as a leader that's super powerful when you don't know everything, because you shift your job from leading from the front to being a servant leader and making your whole career about how can you find great talent and how can you make that great talent be better versions of themselves. And for me, that became a much more successful and rewarding way of leading. And so I'd had some experience of that. And I find that really fulfilling to lead in that way. And then I will say there's also a part about beginner's mind in that. I'm a yogi, I'm a qualified yoga teacher. I very much believe in the beginner's mind. And there's something really also liberating about giving up being the expert and actually learning things and asking the stupid questions, because you're empowered to ask the stupid questions because everyone knows that you don't know the detail of it. I mean, that said, there's tech is tech. Tech in the energy sector and banking is very common. Leadership is, managing risk, reducing friction, building partnerships, the whole talent piece that I talked about. And so there was a lot of commonalities moving sector, but the benefit really for me is that servant leadership mindset, that beginner's mind is really, really powerful and slightly humbling, I'm going to say, because you're no longer the expert. You no longer have a trusted circle of your company. But I think that's the most beneficial thing about moving sectors and moving jobs.
I'm thinking back to one of your earlier responses about being, leaning into being fully comfortable or uncomfortable, right? And so every executive who's got to where they are has pushed them out of that comfort zone, right? So it really is such a great teaching. Thank you, Keith Ferrazzi. And we did an episode together a few episodes ago, shining the light on his book, Never Lead Alone. And we met through his Radical Innovators Collaborative Summit, which is I call Keith the Chief Convening Officer.
Yeah, he sure is.
He brings great people like you and Shannon, tech officers, people officers together, and just really, really special. But yeah, I mean, I remember that day distinctly because you were giving one of the Spark Talks, and which was really special. And you came running in. You were doing a CNBC thing in New York. You bolted over. Keith's like, "Hey, we're going to give you a little break. We'll put you on, next." And you're like, "Whew, thank you. I'm going to breathe for a minute." And that was pretty cool. But thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Keith.
We do a lot of detective work here, right, to come up with really special people, special questioners, and so. Here's someone who's been in the trenches with you in these different environments, as Keith talked about. Her question really, I think, shines a light on multiple of your superpowers. So, and she's very credible to do it. So let's listen in.
Leigh-Ann, one of the things I've always admired about you is that you're never satisfied with good enough. You're constantly scanning for what's next and asking questions that no one else is asking. Where do you think that curiosity comes from? And when did you notice that that was something you were wired to do?
So that's Nastasia Hagen, who's my COO and has worked with me in a number of different roles over the last 2 decades, which is scary when I say that out loud, and a very curious leader herself. And so I actually love sparring with Nastasia. She's always coming up with great podcasts and books and sharing those types of things. So I am very fortunate to have Nastasia in my circle. That's a hard question. I spend a huge amount of time trying to figure out who I am and why I am the way I am. I actually built a digital twin last year, and every day I've been journaling in my digital twin vocally. I originally vibe coded it and then I rebuilt it in GPT, and it's been probably one of the most profoundly helpful things in my life because she gives me the toughest and most real and real-time feedback of anyone. I like this digital twin and coach in my pocket. And so this is the kind of stuff that her and I discussed in a lot of detail. But I'm going to credit my father. When I was growing up, we lived in a council estate, close to welfare. He worked 7 days a week in 2 jobs. And so there was no crazy ambition in our life. I wasn't going to be the first female astronaut or, have a double master's from Harvard. But he definitely had this work ethic. And he definitely had this curiosity and mindset of a little bit better every day. And so before I knew what atomic habits were, I was literally raised with, we would go for a walk, we would go for a run, we would read, we would go to the library. He took me to the library every week. And so I would credit my father's leadership. Very simple man, very humble man. I miss him greatly, but I would credit him with that mindset of small atomic habits and learning and a little bit better every day. And I think that's really helped me. And I think that's really resonates with a lot of people because many of us haven't got time or the resources to do really, really big, crazy ambitions. But it's just amazing how small compounded improvements really add up over time.
Stasha, thanks so much. I had a chance to spend time with her too. Boy, she is sharp and yeah. What'd you say? You enjoy? Did you use the word banter or if you have to
Sparring,
sparring? Yeah,
yeah.
sparring together. That's
She's way smarter than me though, so I often lose in that regard. But yeah, what a circle of amazing women I have in my life, and also an engineer like Adriana.
yeah. I have another Hamilton quote I want to weave in right now in honor of your dad. Okay. Hamilton said, "People sometimes attribute my success to my genius. All the genius I know anything about is hard work."
That's actually on our top floor, on our
Is it
boardroom
really?
floor. It's written on the wall, actually. So I did
Wow.
know that one, and I also believe it. I mean, certainly I believe people are born with genius. I was not one of them. My sister Wendy is the genius in the family. She's a professor. I will just say that I definitely believe that hard work over genius pays off anytime.
Well, I'm glad we talked about this now because I think this next mystery question could be the hardest mystery question of the day. So I just want to prep you for that. Like, how's that for build up, right? And I might also say that of all these amazing things that you do in the world, in your company, in your life, I think this next mystery question could speak to or point to your greatest impact and gift to the world. So let me just leave it there.
I've always been in awe of how you seem to carry so much at once. From ultramarathon running and constant learning and reading, bettering yourself professionally and mentally, speaking on tech panels, going on podcasts, all while being a single mother and advancing your career. How have you managed to juggle that so intentionally, especially while raising a child and continuing to climb professionally by yourself?
Oh,
Wow. Wow.
oh,
I'll give you a minute and people understand people can understand why here in a minute.
yeah.
That
Oh, wow.
where that very astute young lady comes from. So who is that?
So that is my wonderful daughter, Rowan. Um, just wonderful to hear that. You know, you don't always believe that you do the best job as a parent. So when they say these things to you, I think it has double meaning. So I will say, look, I never juggled everything perfectly, and she would be the first-hand experience of that. And so I don't want to give the impression that I'm some kind of superhuman because I am most definitely not. But what I did learn and what she taught me was intentionality. And so I used this phrase before it was popular. I don't believe in work-life balance. It's a harmony goal for me because nothing that we do or in our lives and working at this level is balance. There's no such thing. And in fact, balance says to me lack of excitement. It is about harmony. And like some days, your harmony has to be your work. And some days the harmony has to be your family. And you have to be very intentional in what matters on which day and not try to be a superstar at everything. And she taught me that because especially when it was just her and I had no option. I had to be there at the piano recital. I had to be there when she was sick. And so I had no option but to be there. And I really learned through that sometimes like letting down work really didn't matter as much as it did in my own head. And so I would credit her with teaching me that intentionality. And then the reality is the running, the reading, the learning, these are non-negotiables for me. Like I have to do those things to stay resilient as a leader. And I also want her to see that there's more to life and there's more to me than simply my role and my job because like life is so short. Like having all of these amazing things and amazing people are like what makes life the richest. So I will say, she is I'm also getting emotional again. She is my biggest source of inspiration, and I've learned so much from her. And it's been just wonderful. As you said, being a parent is the best job of all.
It is. It is. And before I met her, when Tracy, my partner in crime, set this up, I wanted to talk to her hours. I wanted to know this amazing human, and so what a special treat that was. And it's funny, you and I have talked previously about. I told you about my wife being my chief humility officer, and you said your husband and daughter are that for you, and so I got to see why that is. And
Yeah, they keep me grounded for sure, and also give me good feedback. Between them and my digital twin, I get lots of sassy feedback, which is really good. We need it, right?
that's right. A little story. And this is going to make total sense to you. So she and I are talking. She had prepared for our Zoom meeting, and she was going to record her question. And as we were talking, you could tell the wheels were turning, and she was kind of reframing. And then, literally for about 2 minutes, she said, "Can I just have a minute to think about this?" And she thoughtfully you could just see her eyes, and just thinking and thinking. And normally sitting for 2 minutes would be very uncomfortable. I found it to be so pleasant, right? And then she spoke, and she just nailed it. Like this is a special young lady. So good job, Mom.
Thank you. I mean, that's a hard thing to do. Like even now, I can jump in unnecessarily and not take that moment to pause. So I'm very, very impressed. Like I said, she's a real source of inspiration. I've actually taken on a course that I'm doing with Harvard right now, through one of their free courses called Justice, which is philosophy, which is one of the things that she studies. Again, she inspired me to do that. And I think that's really cool to have that relationship.
Well, she loved this concept of the mystery question, and so she was all in. And she asked me a lot of questions about the podcast, and I told her about Tech for Good, right? And the scholarship that we do. And she got so excited about that because she's got 50 things going on there at school, and she doesn't just join a club, she becomes a leader in a club. I mean, she was telling me all these things. And but I think it's a great setup for, Tech for Good. 40 STEM nonprofits have benefited from the scholarship, and about $500,000 now in commitments that we've made. And so you have a chance today to call out one of your many nonprofits that you're involved in, that you're passionate about, and they're going to get a gift of this scholarship to our TechLX leadership program. So who comes to mind today, Leigh-Ann?
So thank you for having that as part of this podcast. I'm grateful for that. And I'm going to call out Girls Inc. For a few reasons. My husband is actually on the board in the New York chapter. I think he's the only male on the board of Girls Inc., but also a great leader. And we're very passionate about Girls Inc. because I have been so blessed in my life, as you can tell. And I just growing up would have never imagined my life could have been what it was. And I certainly would never have imagined being a female engineer. And I just feel so grateful and so inspiring young women in America to do amazing things is just it's such a great opportunity to give back to the next generation.
Thank you for that. That's a great organization. People need to go check them out. And what a fun fact about your husband, to be on their board. How cool is that? And I've got another Hamilton quote for you for this moment. And
I'm
it
loving
has
these Hamilton quotes.
it does. It has a little different application on one of the words, but he said the best we can hope for concerning people at large is that they be properly armed, equipped. Right? I mean, armed meant a different thing back then, but I think the Girls Incs. Of the world are really doing a great job of
Absolutely.
properly equipping, in this case, these young women. So yeah, so good. Thank you for that. I'm going to wrap us up. I've got a little bit of a lightning round, a little fun series of questions from one individual. So they're going to be repeating, but we'll do one at a time. And so I think you'll recognize his New York accent. So listen to the first one.
Leigh-Ann, I might have asked you this before, but if you hadn't become an engineer, What career path do you think you would have taken? And if you were starting again, which career path do you think you would take? Would you still be an engineer, or would you maybe have looked at doing something different?
Who is that?
Well, that New York accent belongs to Professor Peter Robertson, who is a long-term friend of mine. Actually, Rowan and his son, Kier, went to kindergarten together. So that's how long we've been friends. And I'm also a professor of practice at Belfast, in Belfast at Queen's University, where Peter teaches and leads. So we've continued that friendship. What an amazing question. I'm just a builder. Like I would have ended up building something. It may have been in a different domain. I love writing actually. I'm loving my digital twin because I'm back to journaling again. I like looking around corners and spotting patterns. So I think I would have been a builder in some way. Engineering's just my first language for building right now. So it would be something building. And I think if I was to do it now, it would be in the intersection of technology leadership and human systems, because I think this human AI tech intersection is really the hardest problem to solve, but also like the most intellectually stimulating, which is one of the reasons I'm doing this Harvard philosophy course right now, because I think really thinking through that like ancient philosophy impact of the human AI intersection becomes really interesting.
Yeah, so good. It was my company in 1984, so 42 years ago now, that came up with the tagline, developing the human side of technology. And it only took 40 years for the industry to catch up to it, right? So we're there now. But Peter, thank you so much. And we got a couple more from Peter. But before we go there, two questions. One is the university's motto. I'm not going to use the Latin, but it means for so much, what shall we give back? That's pretty special.
Special, right? I do. I do think it was one of the reasons that attracted me to join the institution.
Yeah. I want to share a fun fact going back to Keith Ferrazzi. So I think you were talking with Keith about writing a book. He challenged you to start your journal, right?
Did,
I think is
yeah.
how the story goes.
The
And
whole
then,
digital twin is his idea.
well, go there, right? Like let's go there. Talk about that and how that all evolved and what this means to you now.
So I had said, we were talking about the long term, like what we might do in the like very far distant future. And I loved writing when I was a kid. I actually wanted to be a writer, but we were poor and there was no money in that. So there was a few ambitions that I had that like wouldn't have played out. But like I've always loved writing. And he said, look, books aren't created. Like you should journal about your leadership and about longevity, which I'm also passionate about. I've been so passionate about how do you create the health span that when you're older that you can still be healthy. My grandmother passed at 108. My dad, had he not had a very serious Parkinsonism, was 91 and would have probably surpassed his mother. But I think the part for me about longevity is like, how can you create that in an equal way and almost like your tech for good principles that you lead in? Because most of it is very expensive supplements and treatments. And so I'm really curious about how we can create longevity for everyone and make that an equal thing. And so the digital twin concept came out because I'm stuck at journaling and I would be writing and I'd forget my book. And then because I was traveling, I didn't have my journal, I wouldn't write it. And so I thought, I'm just going to try this digitally. And I created this digital twin and it's been amazing. So every single day when I walk home from work, I actually speak into my phone, which makes me look like a crazy person, but that's okay because I think we're going to more and more talk to AI and it's not a natural skill set for me. And so I journal my day, I journal my longevity thoughts, I upload my Whoop score, my blood tests, everything. And it's created like a complete twin of me that knows me inside out. And so every day I get a meta reflection back from my journal about this is what I'm seeing about you right now. And to give you like an example of that, I was traveling recently, I was very tired and I said, hey, twin, I'm going to sleep late tomorrow. And she would say to me, you don't get your energy from extra sleep. You get your energy from clearing your mind and from being out in fresh air and running. You should spend that extra hour and go for a run. And I didn't feel like going for a run. I was pretty jet lagged when I did what she advised. And then I was just like buzzing for like the entire day. And so her meta reflections that she gives back to me are sometimes quite painful. I don't want to hear them, but actually it's just been really transformational. And my leadership coach, who I still have, will say to you, even he's really seen a difference in me since I've been having this like daily meta reflection discussion with my twin. But back to Keith, like I credit him with this whole idea because he was the one that really encouraged me to journal.
Yeah. So much there. For the first time ever, and you were very trusting and you were very courageous. I asked you in preparing for this if I could ask your digital twin some questions, right? And you did it. And you gave me the raw, unfiltered, and I appreciate that. So a lot of the questions, or at least the topics, were informed by Leigh-Ann's digital twin. So very, very cool. Thanks for sharing that. And Peter had two more. These last two questions are a little lighter, a little easier, a little fun. No right or wrong answer, but let's hear Peter's second question.
This might seem like a bit of a quirky question, but which fictional character do you admire most? And would you have liked to have met them? And what would be the question you would ask them?
Oh, I love that.
When someone starts off, this might be a bit of a quirky question. It's going to be a quirky question.
And he's the perfect person to be quirky. I mean, just like Peter is a very, very different thinker. And, this is how the school benefits so much from him because he really, really thinks in a different way, which again, it should be the power of engineers. I'm going to pick Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird, which is one of my favorite books. Just because he stayed so grounded under pressure. My favorite quote, and I'll get it slightly wrong, is like to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. And I really often try to think about that, like when I'm irritated by someone, I try to put myself in their position. But the other thing that I have to work hard at myself, and I've been learning this is one of my big leadership workings right now, is how do you hold conviction without becoming rigid? Because I think that's one of the hardest leadership tensions. Like, how do you stay open but without losing your center? Sometimes I really struggle with that because I can be quite convicted. I was born that way. And so, like, retaining my conviction but not losing my center is something that I work really hard on and I get good feedback on. So Atticus Finch, for many reasons, would have been one of my fictional heroes.
That is brilliant because that can happen so easily, right? Without us knowing it, we become rigid.
I frequently get it wrong, and so I have to course correct myself.
Yeah. I mean, every day in this world, right? We put our heads in the pillow, we wake up, the world's different. And so, yeah, we gotta, there goes your AQ again, right? Your adaptability quotient.
I try.
Yeah. Thank
Don't
you, Peter.
always get it right.
Yeah. This last one is going to be really fun from Peter. So check this one out.
If you were a superhero, what superpower would you like to have? And how would you use it?
Well, again, love it, Peter. I'm a Marvel fan. I sometimes get them all of these comics mixed up, but like Doctor Strange, like time bending, because as much as I like to think I'm got some ninja time skills. Again, Rowan taught me that growing up as a single mom, I had to have ninja time skills. I would say that I still could do with an extra few hours in the day. And so I think that would be helpful right now. But I also think going and like learning from ancient history, like you and I have talked about, like there's so much rich learnings in the Marcus Aurelius's and, ancient Rome or, even Winston Churchill or so many great leaders that like just to spend a moment, or as Atticus Finch would say, to walk a mile in their shoes would just be hugely enriching and might also help me be a better version of the leader that I am today.
Well, I'm going to go look at your LinkedIn profile so I can see you in the hard hat and the steel-toed shoes. And next time I see you, I want to see you in your superhero cape because that's just what I'm expecting now. And
Well, he's also got the best cape, right? He's got like that magic cape that he flies around. So like, I think he's also got the best cape. So I'm going to say like that's a double vote for Doctor Strange.
Right there with you. Right there with you. Well, Leigh-Ann, thank you so much. This has been, I've learned, I've taken notes, I've been inspired. I knew I would be. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. So thank you for that. And, we're going to sign off here because we're going to spend a little more time collaborating. We're going to work on an article for CIO.com. It's going to come out 8 days later. And the title, my working title is The Modern CIO Operating System, Lessons in Coherence, Courage, and Clarity. What do you think? Are you game?
I love it. I love it. And I would just say a huge thank you for having me on the podcast. I was a little overwhelmed when I met you. I don't know if you knew this, but Keith introduced you as the CIO Hall of Fame, Dan Roberts. And so I was a little intimidated. And I would say you're actually a feature in my digital twin many times. And so in a very positive way and a very positive impact. And it's been a great privilege to get to know you, and I'm very, very happy to have been invited on the podcast today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you more than you know, and look forward to seeing you in New York here soon. And I'll just leave it right there. There's no more words that can describe Miss Leigh-Ann Russell. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Let me just say that was truly, truly special for me. I'm sure it was for you too. Thanks so much, Leigh-Ann Russell, for just being so transparent, so open, and just sharing all these gifts, part of your journey. So you can appreciate why I titled this episode Coherence in the Chaos, how Leigh-Ann Russell is rewiring leadership in the age of AI. And she showed us today that in a world moving faster than most organizations can absorb, coherence isn't just a nice idea, a nice word. It's a leadership discipline that's integral to the new leadership playbook. So let's leave it right there. Look for the article we're going to do together and CIO.com next week. More special secret sauce from Leigh-Ann. So let's leave it there. I wish you all well, and we will see you next time.